already 3 wins on the board. Now pass to Jacobs. She shoots. She scores! Another miss for George Watt. That's his 5th. Rosenberg with his 3rd goal of the game. That's a hat trick.
Well, Jim, I tell you, I have never seen someone run a mile faster than Diane Simon.
Hello and welcome to the 2020 Lab Athletics Hall of Fame. As you may have guessed, we're doing things a little differently this year, but that's all the more reason to come together and celebrate the incredible achievements of this year's inductees. Over the next hour, we'll be taking you on a journey across Chicago and the nation as we reminisce on the glory days of some of the best athletes to ever grace our campus. The stories we'll hear about these inductees show their greatness not only as amazing athletes, but their unique and awesome character as well. These inductees were great student athletes at Lab who not only thrived in the school's environment, but helped the school to become a better place. As we approach the 125th anniversary of the Lab School, many are aware of the school's world-renowned education. But what about the rich plethora of stories coming out of the gym? Little do some know, but Lab has a storied history in the athletics program. All you have to do is step into the hallowed halls of Sonny and Kovler Gym and listen to the walls sing. They remember as far back as 1924 when George Lott, whose killer forehand and unreturnable serve led him to 4 IHSA state tennis championships. They'll take us to 1956, where John Davey, in this very sunny gym, was an unstoppable force on the glass and the go-to guy for big baskets down the stretch for the Maroons. All the way to 1982, we'll take a look at Arnie Duncan, the man in the middle, who was a star for the Maroons and then went on to play D1 at Harvard and professionally in Australia. Oh, he was also the Secretary of Education under President Obama, but that was secondary to his basketball career, of course. The walls still sing of 1988, when Diane Simon became Lab's first individual IHSA state track and field champion, winning the 1,600-meter race with an unthinkable time of 5:08.95. They remember fondly 1992 as Chris Harper, whose blazing speed still earns him the school record for the 100 and 200-meter dash, dominated Chicago track and field with his unforgettable smile. In 1999, Andy Rosenband, the soccer magician, was an all-state soccer player at U-High, scoring 115 goals for the Maroons and winning IHSA All-State honors. He was later drafted by the Dallas Burn in the 2003 MLS draft. And finally, a decade later, Kovler and Sonny Jim were graced with the presence of Alexis Jenkins Moore, who lit up women's basketball like never before. She led the Maroons to an outstanding 24-4 record her junior year, and according to legendary Maroons official timer and faculty member Spike Wilson, she was one of the best players to ever play for the Maroons. Alexis is the only women's basketball player at Lab ever to earn a full Division I scholarship. This building could tell you more, but they'll have to wait till next year. As of right now, it's time to learn a little bit more about these incredible athletes and humans. Thank you for joining us today, and without further ado, let's get to the show.
Good evening. I'm Mike Winter, class of '59, and I'm here to introduce John Davey to the Athletics Hall of Fame. Now, one day in '54, '55, a friend came to me and said, let's go see U-High play basketball. Well, I had never heard of U-High playing basketball, and the idea of practicing 2 hours a day is ridiculous. Nevertheless, I went to the game. It was at Bartlett Gym, which is about 5 blocks from Sonny Gym. And at the game, there were 2 things to watch: the opponent and 4 U-High players. And the second thing was John Davey. Did you ever hear of Bobby Jones? He was the greatest golfer of all time up to his years. Someone asked him what he thought of Jack Nicklaus. and he said, "He plays a game I am entirely unfamiliar with." Well, the same can be said of John Davy. Working hard, shooting, defense, ball handling, team leadership, winning, and courage. Every aspect of his game was advanced from the other players. Also, he was an extraordinary defensive player. Never let his man go past him, and he'd stop him or force him to the side. Shooting, John was a deadeye. He started with a set shot, and ultimately it became a jump shot. In those days, there weren't many jump shots in 1957. Now, in the 50s, U-High had only 2 years, freshman and sophomore. After that, you went to the college. However, athletically, you could still play for U-High in the 13-team private school league, which is what John did. His junior year, he led the league in scoring, kind of like Michael Jordan. And his senior year, he played with 4 players from U-High who had won the freshman-sophomore championship in the previous year. It was an excellent team, and it got to the finals of the league tournament. Now, the private school league in those days had 3 great players, John and 2 marvelous players from an unremembered Northside high school. In one league game, John and one of the 2 players guarded each other. John outscored him 39-5. John was also adept at mischief. Once, as a humble sophomore, minding my business, walking with a basketball inside Sonny Gym, John and 2 other big shot varsity players came at me. And all of a sudden, John screams at me in his loudest and sternest voice, "Hey, that's my ball!" You can be sure I threw him the ball and got out of there quickly. 2 astounding statistics in closing. John never missed a 3-point shot, and he never got called for a 24-second violation. It's a great and well-deserved honor for John to be in the Hall of Fame. Hats off to him. Let's go to Jimmy's.
Well, thank you, Mike. I appreciate your remarks, and I would like to thank the committee for selecting me. I probably should have prepared some remarks, but since I never went to Ms. Holmescamp's class or never went to Ms. John's class prepared, why should I come here prepared? I was busy preparing for basketball. The sports programs at U-High were in an interesting transition during the period I was in school. World War II had ended. At that time, the gym had been taken over by the armed services. After that, the school had endured the change of the Hutchins College, which meant that the high school ended at 10th grade, and you got a 10th grade certificate at that point. Many of the people went on to the college, which started with an early entrant program, where you could go for 2 years there, 1 or 2 years, and get your high school degree, and then go through the regular college, or you could go straight through the college and get a college degree. As a result, many of the sports that were around U-High were actually handled over on the university's campus and were actually handled by university coaches. One of the first teams to start to make a comeback to U-High itself was the basketball team. And it started when Mr. Zarvis took over as coach of the Frost-Soft basketball team on the first team I played on. Bill had been gym teacher, head of the department, but hadn't coached anything before, but he coached us that first year that I was a freshman. The second year, I had had a fairly good first year, so the second year, I got promoted to the degree that I got to play for the so-called varsity. And that was made up mainly of early entrance to the college. And so I played as if I was a sophomore playing with juniors and seniors. And the third year, I was actually done with 10th grade, and so I went to the college, and I played as a junior for the same high school team. But it made sense at the time, and I had a lot of fun in high school and basketball. We played in the old private league. Harvard School for Boys was a big rival of ours, Francis Parker, Latin, some of the same names that are you hear today. I had a wonderful career playing for the lab school, and I had many great friends on the teams and still keep track of many of them. I think sports are really important, and I think it's really important how they've grown. I've gotten to follow it, having had 2 daughters attend the lab school and have 3 grandchildren now attending the lab school. Almost all the memories are great memories for me. It turns out that there was one bad memory, and it took place right back here, when in a practice where my last year, I managed to get injured very seriously to my ankle in, of all things, a layup drill. The coach had told us we weren't trying hard, and that even though we were just in a layup drill, the people playing defense should really be aggressive and try and stop the person driving. Well, I got stopped, and my ankle did too. So as I stand here, I feel a little nervous that I may have a memory of that spot back there. Anyway, I'd like to thank everybody, for the people who were involved in selecting me, and I'd particularly, again, like to thank all the teammates that I had, and loud ring the cheers. Keep those banners waving.
Very good. Thanks, Mike, and congratulations, John. I'd like to pass it on to our next presenter and welcome John Rogers.
Thank you, Dave. I've been very, very fortunate to have a front row seat to watch Arnie Duncan's remarkable career unfold. First at Lab, when I got to know him as a 10-year-old, I watched him do wonderful work at Lab, saw him become a great basketball player at Lab. Then I watched him at Harvard as he became an academic All-American and actually beat my alma mater, Princeton, several times. And then I was fortunate, after Arnie's professional career in Australia came to an end, he joined Ariel Investments full-time, working here and helping us with all of our community work. And he made a remarkable difference and left us with the Ariel Community Academy, a very successful small public school teaching kids about the stock market. Then I watched him as CEO of the Chicago Public Schools and really drive remarkable change. It was just a pleasure to see what was happening in the lives of young people here in Chicago. And then, of course, the next great adventure, when Arnie went off to Washington for Barack Obama and to be a part of his cabinet as the Secretary of Education. It was such an amazing thing to see the kind of change that Arnie was able to take and really take on a national and international basis. It was just absolutely fantastic. And then when Arnie came back home and joined CRED, and the kind of work that he's been doing there to make sure that he's giving young people, young African Americans, basically between the ages of 18 to 24, be able to get on the right career paths and be able to see their careers have the kind of opportunity they deserve. As often Arnie says, we're not giving these kids a second chance, we're giving them a first chance to fully participate in our capitalist democracy and stay out of the gang life. As someone who loved basketball like Arnie did, my old coach, Pete Carrill, had an enormous impact on me. I know coaches have had a great impact on Arnie's life. But one of the things that Coach Carrill used to always say, that the way you played really revealed your character. It revealed what kind of person you were. And as I watched Arnie's basketball career develop, several things showed up very, very clearly. First and foremost, Arnie was the ultimate teammate. He was that humble person, always thinking about ways to help others look better. He was always sharing the ball. He always thought about ways he could make others succeed on the court. And he was somebody who always, whenever he saw something successful happen, he made sure he shared the credit with everyone, which is so important, not only on the court, but in life and when you're running organizations. That ability to help your teammates succeed and then humbly share all the success together. Secondly, Arnie was always the hardest worker. You always saw him in the gym, always staying late, getting there early, getting his shots in. He always outworked everyone. You'd see him in the gym also lifting weights, getting stronger, getting prepared to play. And then finally, when he was a young person, you would drive around Chicago, you'd see Arnie out in the playgrounds, playing against the best players wherever they were throughout Chicagoland. He just simply loved to play, and he worked at it and worked at it and worked at it, and made himself into a great player through that hard work. Because as many of us know, Arnie was not the fastest player, he wasn't jumping the highest, but he made himself into a great player by his hard work. And whatever he got into government or what he was doing after he left lab school and after he left Harvard, he always outworked everyone. And then finally, Arnie is someone who has immense courage. He's someone that I've watched play with a broken nose, broken wrists, stress fractures in his legs, playing in enormous heat in 3-on-3 tournaments around the country. But he would always show up, didn't matter how much pain he was in, he was going to be there to help his team win. He also was the player that you always wanted to have the ball in his hands at the end of a big game, under enormous stress. He would find the open man for a layup to help win the game, or he would be the one to take the big shot under pressure to make sure his team won. He was kind of Michael Jordan-like in that way. He wasn't afraid of the spotlight when it really mattered. He was going to do what it took to win. And that's something that if you could think about it, being in the cabinet, you have to be able to make big decisions under pressure. When you're running the school system of the city of Chicago, with all the day-to-day pressures, you have to be able to keep your wits about yourself when everybody else is stressed out and not sure how to be successful. So at the end of the day, Arnie has been extraordinarily successful because he's been able to utilize these key aspects of his character to win wherever he's been. He's been that ultimate teammate. He's been the hardest worker. He's been the one that's had the immense courage to make the tough decisions under enormous stress. It's really my honor to congratulate you tonight, Arnie, on your well-deserved honor to be part of the University of Chicago Lab School's Hall of Fame.
Thanks, John. This is just an extraordinary honor, and I'm so pleased to be here, and frankly probably think I shouldn't be here. My sister was a much, much better player than I was. My son's going to be a much better player than I ever was, so I'm probably one of the least qualified Duncans to receive this award, but nevertheless, I'm really, really honored to be here. And Lab's a special place. I just want to say thank you to a few different people, and the fact that Lab's a K-12 school was so important to my upbringing and my development as an athlete, but probably more importantly, my development as a human being. I sort of had a series of idols, mentors, role models that helped to bring me along. The first was James Fleming, who was probably about 8 years older than I was, and so I was a real little guy. But when because it's a K-12 school, you could go to those games and watch him play, and to see him, I remember there being a clip on the bulletin board downstairs of him going on to Purdue University after lab school. And for me, just as a little kid, to think about someone actually going to college and being able to play basketball, somehow even at that age, I knew that wasn't the norm here at the laboratory schools, but it gave me something to aspire to, something to think about. A couple years after him was John Rogers, and John is my best friend, has been my role model forever. Outside of my parents, he's had by far the greatest influence on my life of anybody, on any friend you could possibly have. He and I talk every single week. He sort of took me under his wing when I was a little guy, 12, 13, 14, followed him around, and he was my Michael Jordan before there was a Michael Jordan. I'm now 55. That's a 40-plus year relationship. And to have someone like that in your life every step of the way, telling you the truth, telling you what you need to hear, not what you wanted to hear, but what you need to hear, has been invaluable. I just remember him, it's amazing being here in this gym. I remember watching him, baskets were different, but the court was about the same. Watching him dive for loose balls, watching him hit crazy flying layups, falling out of bounds, just watching how hard he played, how hard he competed was remarkable. And then there was Eric Kuby, a couple years after John, 4 years older than me, but just sort of watching his game, watching him play and develop. And these have all been lifelong friends. So it's just an extraordinary, extraordinary place. And just to be part of that group was so helpful to me as a young kid trying to figure this out. When I started to try and play in some of the better leagues, I didn't have a license. James Fleming would come and pick me up every day and take me to the games, and playing against the best college players, the pro players back here in Chicago in the summers. That helped me go to a whole different level. Bobby Solomon has just a classic line about lab school. He says that everyone here is overconfident athletically and underconfident academically. And that was absolutely true for me. When I went to college, I remember in freshman expos class, the professor asking where you go to high school. I said, lab schools in Chicago. He said, you went to lab schools, you're going to do just fine here. And they were right. I went to try out for the basketball team and promptly got cut my freshman year, didn't make it. and had to work through a tough year and sort of fight my way onto the team, and things went fine after that. But the academic base here sets you for life. The athletic base, maybe not so much in terms of the basketball, but in terms of the relationships and just lifelong friends. It's so interesting now during this pandemic, there are a set of us that go and run every morning at Dunbar Park. Two of the guys that run are Kwame Raoul and Carl Jenkins. Both weren't just classmates of mine here at Lab School, they were teammates here on our basketball team. And to be able to develop those kinds of friendships that, again, will last forever is just an unbelievable gift. The final thing I'll say is that the reason my wife and I moved back here, she worked at Lab for many years. Our kids were lucky enough to go here. My son's here playing ball now. The reason we're here is because Lab School in Hyde Park is just such an extraordinary place. And I don't have to say that to anybody in this tape, but just to let folks know how unbelievably lucky I feel to have Hyde Park and Lab School be just central core to my life ever since I was a kindergartner here and my dad was a professor at the university. This place teaches you how to think, teaches you how to be a teammate, teaches you not just to value diversity, but to embrace diversity, to thrive in diversity, to want that. And now more than ever, I appreciate what this school and what this community does for all of us. Thank you so much. This is just an extraordinary honor, and I feel so lucky to be able to receive it.
Thanks, John, and congratulations, Arnie. I'll send it on to our next presenter, Odari Weathers.
Thanks, Dave. Chris Harper and I have been friends and competitors since our first day in Mrs. Jordan's third grade class in Blaine Hall. From that moment on, we would race at any and every opportunity. It became a tradition, dare I say an expectation, to finish in the top 2 positions for the 50-meter dash every year during the lower school Olympic Games. Yes, I am probably the first and only person at Lab that could beat Chris at sprints. Soon enough, even I could barely keep up. That fact probably has something to do with why I got a recent call from Chris one evening. He says he's made the Laboratory School's Athletic Hall of Fame and needs someone to introduce him. He assures me there is no pressure, but how could I not do him this honor? In many ways, even the way he wanted to make sure his moment of achievement was a shared experience is reflective of why he's a perfect person for this honor. Chris's road to this moment began with his parents, Mr. and Mrs. Theodore Harper, affectionately known as Theo and Agnes. Theo made his presence known at Lab every day, at drop-off and pickup, till Chris started driving. And even then, sometimes he would drop by the school just because. Theo was also at every game, even at those far games away at Elgin, North Shore, and Lake Forest Academy. Theo's presence was so important to the black boys at Lab. He was one of many black male parental figures who had no problems making his presence known. There were sleepovers where his parents loved on us just as much as Chris. Those were some of my happiest memories as a child, not just Chris's. One last memory I'll share will shed light on how Chris's upbringing so deeply impacted his life and athletic trajectory. Another 1990s citywide Chicago track standout named Chris Ellis, rest in peace, attended Chicago Vocational High School, a perennial CPS powerhouse at the time, and ran the 800. Unbeknownst to most, he had the unimaginable experience of being abandoned by his mother in high school, leaving him without a home or stability until the summer of his senior year, when tonight's inductee, then teenage, Chris Harper asked his parents if Ellis could live with them. Of course, Mr. and Mrs. Harper agreed. They provided everything for both Chris's to succeed. This served as a turning point in Chris's life. It marked the foundational ability for him to compete in life just as well as any sport, and that he did. It is now commonplace to hear about multi-sport professional athletes, but this is an era when a name like Deion Sanders was a novelty. In Chris's athleticism, we could see Jimmy Butler's basketball toughness, Bo Jackson's strength, Rickey Henderson's baseball acumen and power, Pele's soccer agility, and Carl Lewis's speed. He also had the Mamba drive and relentless mentality. In the 1990s at Lab, we had an opportunity to watch him simultaneously dominate in 4 sports: basketball, baseball, soccer, track and field. This is certainly a feat in the ISL, but Chris turned heads throughout the city and state, which is no small accomplishment in a great sports city like Chicago. Looking back, our class had five athletes that went on to become NCAA Division I athletes, a rarity for the lab schools at the time. All of us agreed that Chris's drive and competitive nature was felt in every sport. The sport nor your gender impacted Chris's desire to compete and win. Our classmate, Dr. Nanya Fiakpui, a standout athlete in her own right, shared, "Chris has a competitive spirit that I had the pleasure of challenging from an early age, whether it was racing from Sunny Jim or facing off with him on the pitcher's mound. Trash talking aside, Chris treated me with respect as an athlete and worthy competitor and never implied that I was less than because I was a girl." Another classmate, Matt Tuttle, says Chris's speed was so exceptional, it took a lot of work to learn how to control the soccer ball while moving so fast. Once he figured it out, he had a 50-plus goal-scoring season, which resulted in him being named to the All-State team and ISL Player of the Year. After lab, Chris went to Penn and focused on track and field. While there, he won 12 Ivy League championships, and he's one of 10 people in the Ivy Track League history to ever win a race all 4 years. After graduating from Wharton, Chris's speed and drive continued to serve him well as he later graduated from Kellogg, married his beautiful wife, Lindsay, and became a girl dad to Reese and Vivian, in whom he takes tremendous pleasure coaching. Christopher Adam Harper, I, along with the entire class of 1992, class please stand, would like to congratulate you on this achievement. You have uniquely contributed to our lab community as a student, faculty member, and now Hall of Famer. Again, congratulations. We love you, brother.
Thank you so much for allowing me this opportunity to speak to you all about how grateful and thankful I am for this honor. How about that? I get inducted into the Athletics Hall of Fame. This is very exciting, a special moment for me and my family. I want to take a moment to thank the committee, the care and the thoughtfulness, and really the love that you put into this process was a gift to participate in and to be a part of. And I'm so thankful for you thinking of me and for inducting me into Lab School's Hall of Fame. Thank you. I am holding a scrapbook. This is what my dad would do after every game, after every article that came into the paper. He would scrapbook it. And that leads me to the first group of folks I want to say thank you to, and that's my parents. They loved me, they cared for me. In all of 4 years, they probably missed less than 5 games. This is all across all sports. I am so thankful for them, and I'm so grateful for them. I love them, and I just hope that I continue to make them proud. I want to say thank you also to my coaches. There's no way that I could have accomplished any of this without amazing coaches. In baseball, I had Coach Charles Lang, who was my summer coach, Al Smith, Mike Mastercola, John Wilson. They're all men I love, and I'm so thankful for all of you. In soccer, there was the legendary coach, Sandy Patlack. How amazing it was to have you as my coach. Coach Andy Coots, thank you. In track, there was Coach Nancy Johnson, Coach Bud James, Frank Johnson. Thank all of you. Again, Bud James coming to me my junior year. Hey, you come out for track. You run a full year. I guarantee you'll win a state championship. I didn't believe you. I really didn't. But I knew I would work my hardest to try to make it happen. And we made it happen. We all did it together. Thank you. Thank you for all those athletes. I would say student athletes who were before me. When I was in 7th and 8th grade, freshman, sophomore year, looking up to you as scholars, as amazing athletes, what a gift that was. What a privilege that was. Thank you. Again, this is a special day for me. It's a special day for my family to have the opportunity to have one of my best friends, my brother, Eldari, introduce me. Thank you, man. I love you. I appreciate you. You've pushed me, been there for me every step of the way. Just an amazing friend, amazing role model for me. Thank you. And to the community, to the committee, the opportunity to share this with my family, with my wife, Lindsay, with my kids, Vivian and Reese. It's just such a gift, such a privilege, and I am so thankful for it. I wish you all the best, and I am so thankful for this amazing, amazing honor.
Thanks, Adari, and congratulations, Chris. We'll pass it on to Coach Megan Janda.
Thanks, Dave. I've heard Alexis described by fans, players, and coaches alike as one of the most entertaining and talented basketball players we've ever seen at Lab. But from her perspective, it was never the Alexis show. As her coach, this speaks to her exceptional character, her extraordinary work ethic, and her ability to challenge her teammates by setting a high standard for herself. Alexis spent every free moment before, during, and after school working on her game. My first memory of Alexis is her kindly and quietly asking me to rebound for her, which I believe started in lower school, but she came back every day until she graduated from high school. I think her skills matched her passion, even at that age and at that stage of the game. She loves the game. She loved working on her skills and practicing just as much as she loved playing in the game. A coach's dream. As a coach, I learned so much from her, as the players did that she played with on the court. She left it all on the court and had fun in the process. Some of her high school scores ranged in the 20s to 30s. She always set additional challenges for herself to exceed her last highest moment, her last highest score. She set assist goals, she set records to support her teams. She would often ask for side challenges before the game. Get so-and-so to score, get so-and-so to get so many assists. She had so much fun playing and challenging herself as she did challenging her teammates. She made us all better. She really made me look good as a coach too. I have to admit, on a few occasions, I called a quick timeout and told her to go get the ball and score. And she would just go ahead and do that. She made me look really good. It was really fun. We reminisced on some of our times, and instead of talking about the records that she broke and the championships that we won, we talked a lot about practice. Not only the crazy hard drills on the court that put everyone over the edge sometimes, so we worked very hard together. We also talked about the fun moments. She would get this sparkle in her eye, and she would ask for a challenge. How many free throws in a row do I need to make for you to buy us breakfast? It started at 25, then I went to 75, and I was going broke, so we shifted to three-pointers. I believe it started at 20, went to about 40, maybe 50 in a row. Now this is something else. I mean, her teammates loved and respected her. They watched her do these crazy drills and skills and just left it all on the court. It was so fun. She was just a leader on and off. This is a really proud moment for me as a coach to watch Alexis accept this award and to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. I'm very proud as a coach, and she's made her mark on Lab School as a quiet and very strong leader. Congratulations, Alexis.
Thank you, Janda, for those kind words. I would also like to thank the committee for selecting me for its second class Annual Athletics Hall of Fame. It's truly an honor. I'm not much for a lot of attention, but I will tell you, I will definitely be bragging about being etched in the history books at Lab School. This is something that when my grandkids go here, they can see that Grandma had some skills once upon a time. To take it back a little further, a lot of people don't know this, but I actually played soccer first, AYSO, then AAU indoor and outdoor, picked up basketball in between that. But obviously I couldn't keep all that up and saw myself gradually getting better at basketball, whereas soccer, I felt more at a standstill. I went to lab my whole life. I'm a lab rat, so from preschool on to high school. And it came to a point where I knew I was decent enough to compete with the best in Chicago and possibly even get a scholarship offer. The only problem was that lab wasn't known for its athletics, but rather, of course, academics. This is where I started entertaining transferring schools. I narrowed it down to either Walter Payton or Whitney Young, which is where both my parents went, and also my little cousin Shanice, who won a few city championships, so shout out to her. But after much thought and discussions with friends and family, I knew that if I was as good as I thought I was, that it doesn't matter what school I'm at or coach I play for, I would ultimately get noticed. So I went the academic route and I stayed. And to this day, I am so grateful that I did. The relationships that I have fostered through the lab school community has only enriched my experiences in life. From getting to know John Rogers and later him hiring me as an intern at Arrow Investments and getting exposed to that type of lifestyle, to still having meaningful friendships from folks that I've known since the first grade. Take this lovely film crew, for example, Alex Zimmer and Jeremy Handrup. You know, we all graduated class of '09, so big shout out to you guys. I just love how everything comes together. You know, you don't really get that anywhere else. I would like to give a huge thanks to Dave Ribbons, where in a world full of change, he has definitely been a constant in my life and has always looked out for me, so I appreciate that. Megan Janda for being such a wonderful coach, teacher, and friend. Of course, my teammates from throughout my 4 years. Wouldn't have been able to achieve this without you guys. Kenji Conley for forcing me to play on the boys' 8th grade basketball team. That's something a lot of people don't know either, but there was no rule in the rule book, so it was pretty cool to have someone, I would say, as vibrant as he was, to have my back and to see me as a hooper and not just a girl dribbling the basketball. JD from Chicago Hoops Express for giving me that exposure that I needed, and for a girl whose favorite class was PE, thank you to all my wonderful teachers that put in that extra time to help me stay afloat in my academics. I would be remiss if I didn't mention my boy Zeke Upshaw. He came to lab our freshman year, and we lit the basketball program on fire. From being in newspaper articles to features on TV together to even signing our letters of intent to play at the same college, Illinois State University. You know, you can't really write a better story than that. I know he's not here with us in the physical world, but I know he's listening and watching, so I want to say thank you to him, and I will forever cherish those moments. Lastly, my family, mom, dad, Judy, granddad, Grandpa Bubba, to the countless hours of AAU basketball, soccer tournaments, practices, the loads of money, and most importantly, time that you all contributed. I can't thank you all enough for all the endless love and support in creating such a strong foundation for me and allowing me to grow as I am, and ultimately for believing in me and my raw talent. Thank you to everyone who made this possible. I will never forget this moment. I love you all, and go Maroons.
Special thanks to Coach Megan Janda and Alexis. Alexis, we have fond memories of watching you play basketball in Upper Kovler Gym. It was wonderful. I have the honor of presenting and accepting the award for our next inductee who passed away in 1991. George Lott from the class of 1924 was a standout tennis, baseball, and basketball player for the Maroons during the early years of athletics at Lab. George won 4 IHSA state championships, 3 singles, and 1 doubles championship from 1922 to 1924. Lott went on to play tennis professionally, winning 11 doubles championships at Wimbledon, the French Open, and the United States National Championship from 1928 to 1934. He was inducted into the International Tennis Hall of Fame in Newport, Rhode Island in 1964. He coached tennis at DePaul University for 22 years. The 1924 Midway said this about George Lott: "Victories come crowding to George in every form. Hailed the coming czar of the courts, a star basketball player, a star pitcher, and a star fusser. He's the only U-Hire who has ever had his name in the papers 365 days out of 365 days. 96 years after graduating from U-High, we're pleased to induct George Lott into the U-High Hall of Fame." And now I'll pass it off to our next presenter, longtime soccer coach and teacher at Lab, Mike Moses. Mike.
Thanks, Dave. Congratulations to all the recipients tonight. My name is Mike Moses, and I'm honored to present Andy Rosenband, class of '99, as an inductee to the 2020 class of the University High School Athletics Hall of Fame. I was Andy's soccer coach for all 4 years of his career at U-High. As you can see on Andy's resume, he was a prolific player earning numerous awards. I could talk about each accolade, but this speech is time sensitive. I'll mention one particular award which is extremely hard to achieve, which is the Illinois High School Soccer Coaches Association's All-State Award. To provide some context, U-High was grouped with many larger schools in each of the voting regions. Andy's talent and statistics were overwhelmingly recognized by the coaches to put him into this prestigious all-state group. I remember distinctly one of the coaches saying, quote, "How can I get Andy to transfer to our school?" I said no. From that point on, Andy helped to keep U-High on the Chicago area soccer map. My fondest memories of Andy's playing days were right here on the lower midway. As you can see in the background, the field looks pretty good now, but it was not that way back when Andy was doing all of his stuff on this beautiful field. This field became his soccer playground. He flourished on the 8th grade team, and the Independent School League opponents already knew how special he was going to be as he transitioned to U-High. The lower midway posed many challenges. The lack of a sideline due to this hill to my right, manhole covers on both sides, glass bottles, the blistering sun making the field rock hard, and the fall rains turning the pitch into a muddy mess of puddles. That time of the year, the field became known as the Swamp. And don't forget, there was an opponent trying their best to notch a victory. Andy navigated all of this with such adept skill that you would think the Midway was like Jackman Field is today. Andy never lacked for having a competitive fire. Andy was always well represented by his parents perched on the top of the hill, giving support to all. They never missed a game, home or away. You could tell right away knowing what type of person Andy would become based on the excellent example his parents set for him. They were also an influence on me for the classy way they carried themselves. Back to Andy. He was a captain and led not only by his play on the field, but motivated his teammates to always strive to excel at the highest level. He would take constructive criticism well and understood how to achieve his goals, pun intended, as well as the team's. He would always win graciously and lose with dignity. After setting goal-scoring records at U-High and earning notoriety as one of the best players in the state, it was clear Andy was on a path to greater soccer achievements. We lost touch during his college days, but I would continue to watch the box scores from his college matches. We reconnected during his professional career with the MLS Dallas Burn, MLS Chicago Fire, and the MISL Chicago Storm. After searching through some archival material on Andy's professional career, I stumbled on a short news story from April 5th, 2009, when he was with the indoor team, the Storm. In the season finale against the Milwaukee Wave at the Sears Center, the article stated, quote, "Andy Rosenband put the Storm on top 2-0, getting loose at the back post and depositing Will Klutzian's nice feed," unquote. I'm guessing Andy remembers the outcome was a disappointing 20-5 defeat. This quote sums up his playing prowess. He would get loose with or without the ball and find a way to score. Andy is a great role model for future U-High soccer players and continues to score goals in life. Congratulations to my friend Andy Rosenband, and thank you.
Thanks, Coach Moses, for those kind words. Firstly, I just want to say how proud and honored I am to be part of the 2020 Hall of Fame. Congrats to all the other inductees. It's a pretty impressive list when you look top to bottom. And from a personal standpoint, it's very cool for me to be going at the same time as Chris Harper. You know, growing up at Lab, you heard about what a great athlete and what a great competitor he was. And you know, we got to know each other a little bit while we were both back at school coaching. And I want to thank my head coach and friend, Mike Moses, for all the support and knowledge he's provided throughout the years. I don't think it's truly understood how challenging Mike's job was as coach of the men's soccer program here at Lab. During my time, I was the only student athlete that played soccer outside of the fall season. Most of my teammates were either basketball or baseball players, really just looking to keep in shape in the off season, get ready for their prospective seasons. So Mike was able to get the most out of every player, get them to buy into kind of what we were doing, And that really helped bring the team together quickly, and one of the main reasons I think we were successful. I also want to take this time to mention David Ribbons and the impact he's had on the athletics program. I'm standing in front of Jackman Field right now and just looking at this amazing facility, and such a long cry from the midway where I used to play, and you had to run down a steep hill to take a corner and you just tried not to trip. David's just done an amazing job here at Lab, and to think in 20 years with Mike Moses' years of service and now in the hands of Coach Potter that Lab would be state champions is just an unbelievable accomplishment, and a huge congratulations to everyone involved. I obviously want to thank my parents and brothers for their never-ending support. I can probably count on both hands the amount of times my parents missed a game throughout my career. And as a kid, I remember the many morning trips to play games all over the Midwest, at 4 a.m. leaving the house, and my parents schlepping me back and forth, and always did it with a smile and never complained. And their support continued into college, and when I eventually turned pro, and they were able to travel to see me play in Holland and Germany and Brazil and Israel, to name a few, and having them there was just such an amazing feeling, and I love you guys. After Lab, I received a scholarship to Wake Forest University. As a freshman, was part of the team that was ranked #1 in the country for most of that season. We eventually ended up losing in the quarterfinals, but it was a historic season for Wake. After my sophomore year, I ended up transferring to Ohio State, but it proved to be the right decision. I went on to become an All-Big Ten player, and was the first player in the history of Ohio State to be drafted to the MLS. I signed a contract for the Dallas Burn in 2003 for my rookie season. And then over the course of the next 7 years, I was fortunate to continue my career playing for different teams throughout the country, and had some memories that I'll never forget. Some of the highlights include playing for my hometown team and the team I grew up rooting for, the Chicago Fire, and then representing my country as a member of the U.S. Futsal National Team during the 2008 World Cup in Brazil. And then the following year, I was able to serve as captain of the U.S. team during the 2009 Maccabi Games in Israel. I wanted to quickly just share 2 stories during my career that tie back to Lab that are special to me. In 2006, when I was playing for the Fire, got in touch with Coach Moses and Dave Ribbons, and had the opportunity to come back to Lab and coach the JV team with Tom Piani. And just being with the kids and seeing how far they've progressed and the program has progressed, it was really inspiring. And I just wanted to be able to provide as much knowledge and experience as I could, just to help the kids get better and let them know that you can be successful here at Lab as an athlete. Later that season, we had a playoff game at Soldier Field, and the entire team and coaching staff showed up to watch me play. They were there, and it was a cool moment, and it's something I'll never forget. Another special moment for me was when I got drafted to the MLS. I was picked in the 5th round, and believe it or not, 3 picks later, my high school rival from Latin, Johannes Maliza, was selected to the MLS and to the San Jose Earthquakes. And when you think about that, having 2 players from the ISL being drafted to the MLS, let alone in the same year, it was remarkable. And our teams played each other midway through the season. We were able to spend some time together during warm-ups and before the game and catch up, and it was really cool. I just want to say in closing how much Lab has meant to me over the years. And I think during high school and middle school, I don't think you realize it at the time, but as you move through life and all these different experiences, you realize how prepared that Lab, does for you, and how special of a place it is. And I've continued to be a member of the community. I'm part of the alumni board. I ended up marrying a Parker alum, but probably the only debate I've won is agreeing to send our kids to Lab, and I thank you for that, Laura, and I love you. Our youngest son, Theo, is now in 1st grade here, and we're hoping to send our youngest, Max, here in the fall. And again, just want to say thank you. It's a huge honor, and go U High.
Thanks, Mike, and congratulations, Andy. We'll pass it on now to Ron Droz.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you're enjoying this event as much as I am. At the 1988 University High All-School Athletic Banquet, Diane was selected as the most valuable team member and was to receive an award that night. When I spoke there, I said, if I were a parent and had a daughter that turned out as fine as Diane, I couldn't be more proud. In the 32 years since then, she's acquired an MD, been married to Eddie Tallerman, a high school classmate, and they have 25 anniversaries, raised 3 successful children, and acquired a medical specialty as a neonatologist. Diane is being honored tonight because she was a pretty good runner while at U High. How good? I'll let you decide as I list some of her accomplishments. Diane never lost a race in ISL competition. I suspected there were some junior and certainly senior girls that felt they had paid their dues, and it was time for them to start winning some distance races. Unfortunately, Diane came along and spoiled those plans. Diane was the figurehead of our team, but she never thought of herself as anything special. Diane advanced to the cross-country state championships 3 times. At the state district meet, which is where one qualifies to advance to state, in 1986 through 88, Diane ran the 16 and 3200. In those 6 races, she brought home 5 gold and 1 silver medal. At the state meet, as a sophomore, Diane was 7th in the 16 and 2nd in the 32, almost a state champion. As a junior, she was 3rd in the 32, and as a senior, Diane became the first individual event state champion of any girls' sports in U High history when she won the 1600. I talked to Diane about a month ago and asked her for any certain remembrances or things that were important to her back in the time we were working together. And one of the things she said was there were a few workouts that were so hard she almost cried before she finished them. Roger Bannister, the world's first sub-4-minute miler, said, "The more pain you endure, the more you can endure." Diana and Angie certainly understand that statement. At the end of the season, I had an informal conversation with every athlete where you could talk about anything and say anything. It was a great coaching tool, and it was good for the athlete too. After Diane's freshman year, during our conversation, she asked me, "Do you think I could become a state champion?" I told her that she had just completed a very successful freshman year. She certainly was not afraid to train hard. She had developed a beautiful, economic, and powerful stride. She could process oxygen with amazing efficiency. And let's just stick with the plan that worked so well as a freshman and see where we get next year. Bill Veeck, a very unconventional owner of numerous Major League Baseball teams, including the White Sox, and he also had 2 kids that went to lab school and graduated, once said, "I love dreamers. They never know what can't be done." Until Diane did it in the final race of her high school career. Dr. Diane, a big hug, sincere congratulations, and thanks for the memories.
Thank you, Ron, and thank you so much for the recognition. Lab School is an amazing place and sadly seems like so long ago. Growing up in Hyde Park, I loved the sense of community, going to school and running with friends from the South Side. I just remember that Angie Williams, Candy Hudson, Kate Grossman, and I all had a common goal to show that a small private school like U High could compete with schools like Muhammad Seymour. Despite the 2nd place finish in the mile relay at the indoor finals in Charleston, Illinois, we learned how to be tough and competitive. These girls were all great athletes and more so great people who got me a bit out of my bubble, even on the south side of Chicago. Running didn't come super easy. As you can see from my small frame, it took a lot of steps to match some of the taller girls. Yet starting in middle school races at Jackman Field, something propelled me or motivated me to get out in front and just motor along. It wasn't pain-free, as distance running never is, but I just kept running and started winning races. I ran with my family at the Gargoyle Gallop and in a memorable 5K at White Sox Comiskey Park with my dad and his medical residents from the UFC. I started enjoying running through the streets of Hyde Park, from Drexel Avenue to the lakefront and around the Promontory Point. After graduation, I went on to run Division I cross country and track at Brown University. Running allowed me to travel the East Coast to the memorable Penn Relays and as far south as Auburn University in Alabama over spring breaks. Again, these trips opened my eyes to the diversity of young men and women, all with common goals of competing on the collegiate level. The camaraderie and inclusion were palpable and likely changed my outlook on the college experience and far beyond. Lab was the foundation of a long career in running. I did not realize what a fantastic coach Ron Droz was at the time. Like any teenager, I took a lot for granted. He pushed me to run harder than I would have on my own because he believed in my ability. I was reminded of a workout at Stagg Field where I did 2,400-meter runs, intervals, something I wouldn't have even done in college, and teammates would jump into every third interval. These types of workouts got me to the Illinois State Outdoor Championships multiple years in relays, 3,200s, and 1,600 meters. Thank you, Coach Droz, for understanding how to inspire and push me. The two of us were a great team. When I qualified senior year again in the 3,200 and 1,600 meters, he gave me the choice of running both or focusing on one event. After talking to Candy in our hotel room the night before, I decided to just do the 1,600 meter, and it paid off. My legs were fresh, I was coached and tapered perfectly, and my mind was sharp and determined to win. When it all comes together at the right time for any athlete and coach, it is truly glorious. Thank you, Coach Droz, my parents, and my teammates for making lab school track and cross country the start of a lifelong passion. The discipline of long distance running also carried into other aspects of my life as I studied in medical school, residency, and fellowship to become a neonatologist, a doctor who takes care of extremely preterm and sick infants. As a doctor, I applied the same rigor as I did to running. The way you train, push your partners, and work together synchronously in high-intensity situation requires teamwork and also endurance. I have continued to be an avid runner, and through running have continued to meet people from all backgrounds. I still compete across the U.S. in marathons and cross-country races, even recently winning in the Masters Team Cross Country National Championships in both Seattle and North Carolina. Most of my neighbors on Mercer Island know me as a runner, running up and down and around the island. One friend jokes, "What are you running from?" And I would reply, running has given me peace and balance in a very full and at times stressful life. Again, the lab school helped me find that lifelong balance in a team of caring people in a loving and inclusive community. Thanks again for the honor of being a member of the Lab School Hall of Fame.
Thanks, Ron, for your veteran presentation last year and again this year. And congratulations, Diane, on being accepted into the Lab Athletics Hall of Fame. Thanks for joining us for this special event. We look forward to being back together in person in the fall of 2021. The purpose of the Hall of Fame is to share stories of former student athletes and to inform our community of our past success. It's also intended to inspire our current generation of lab students to aspire to excellence in athletics. Special thanks to the members of our Hall of Fame Selection Committee for their efforts in making 2020 a success. Susan Shapiro, Marty Billingsley, Chris Harper, William Harms, Daoud Talib, John Rogers, Michael Zarobi, Spike Wilson, and Aaron McDermott. A special thanks to David McGill and Damon Cates for their support of the Athletics Hall of Fame. Thanks to all the presenters for sharing your stories, and congratulations to our Hall of Fame class of 2020 for their outstanding contribution to our lab community. Dave out.